If you're here because listening to Maverick City music helped you realize there's a whole nother world of Christian music outside of just CCM, you're probably not alone. Maverick City is just the tip of the iceberg of incredible gospel music out there today and from decades past. If your church is only playing CCM music right now, it takes an intentional effort and a lot of work to begin to broaden your horizons and appreciate what gospel music can offer your congregation. And no one position in the band has a more intimidating part to play than the piano. Let's talk about some of the common keys and piano sounds that show up in a lot of gospel music, and how you can apply these concepts and inspiration to your own worship team in a way that's authentic and not derivative. First, I need to make one thing clear. Gospel music is way too broad of a genre to distill down to one basic idea or set of sounds that will cover everything. So let's just say that right up front. I grew up in a church that played a lot of gospel music from artists like Kirk Franklin, Fred Hammond, Donnie McClurkin, Hezekiah Walker, the list goes on and on. But my church also played a lot of Chris Tomlin, Hillsong United, Maranatha music. I didn't really appreciate as a kid just how unique that was to be growing up in a church that played a lot of gospel music, but also played a lot of CCM music. And it wasn't until I became an adult and looked back on my childhood that I started to connect some of those dots and develop an appreciation for just how unique that experience was. So for this video, I'm just gonna share from my own personal experience as I've looked back and begun to appreciate some of what I was exposed to as a kid and the music that I've now really come to love as an adult. I'm not a voice of authority on gospel music, and there is no one unified voice of authority. I'm just gonna share what resonates with me, what I hear across some of my favorite artists, and what inspires me when I try to bring some gospel influence into the sounds and patches that I create. So let's start off by talking about piano sounds. Now, you can't go wrong with just a dry, grand piano sound. And you could cover a lot of bases with that. That's the song Every Praise by Hezekiah Walker. It is an awesome song with really great arrangements and a ton of key changes. It's an absolute blast. If you haven't checked it out, you absolutely should. I'm going to be playing this song a bit throughout as we talk about some of these different sounds. So that's just an acoustic, sort of dry, grand piano sound. But a lot of classic gospel songs were performed on digital workstation keyboards, where the piano sounds were digital or sometimes early sample-based technology. Early workstation keyboards like the Motif and the Triton, for example, had some really definitive grand style pianos, but they each had a very distinct sound. And no one unit was perhaps more definitive than the Roland NKS 20 digital piano rack modeler. The piano and electric piano sounds in this digital rack unit were widely used across all sorts of genres of music, but particularly gospel music after it was released. And these pianos and EPs sound very distinct and really incredible. Here's the Piano 1 preset from the MKS 20, which we've sampled and recreated inside of the Sunday Keys app. And here's Piano 2 from the MKS 20. It's also very common to layer the E-piano presets from the MKS 20 with the piano presets. So let's load Piano 1 back into the first slot, and then we'll put E-piano 1 in the second slot. We'll bring the volume down for both just a touch. Here's how that sounds. E-piano 2 actually sounds very distinctly different from E-piano 1. Let me show you the difference. A lot brighter. Next up, let's talk about synth pads. But before we do, if you're watching this video and finding it helpful and you're not subscribed to the channel already, it would mean a lot to me if you would hit the subscribe button right now. When you're subscribed, you won't miss the videos that we release every week to help you and your worship team level up the keys position at your church. And it's a great way to show support for the channel so that we can keep doing what we're doing and reach more people. Thanks for taking the time to subscribe. Now, on the matter of pads, this is what I associate with a lot of gospel music that I love and I grew up listening to. Oftentimes, one of my favorite kind of character for these pad sounds are some really cool string pads. These have a nice bit of sort of dramatic tension to them. And typically, they're very responsive to your playing. So they have a quick attack they can handle as you move around on the piano. Here's another. And if you're playing something more upbeat, like Every Praise, you could even go for this fast articulation of a string pad. This is going to be able to keep up with the playing. This pad sound is doing something that we don't often ask of pads in the CCM genre. It has quick attack, quick release, and that's so that we can comp a little bit more and play more rhythmically in both hands. You'll notice that I'm actually walking bass in the left hand as I'm playing this particular part. If I had a soupy ambient pad that faded in slowly and faded out slowly with tons of reverb or shimmer, it just wouldn't work. You wouldn't really hear the pad at all in terms of actually adding something. It would just be this sort of messy soup. And if the attack time were super slow, you might not even really know that the pad is in there at all. So you need this quick attack in order to be able to play the piano with this pad layered in as you would intend. Side note, I'm actually hearing these kinds of pads used more and more on CCM records lately as well, because the truth is you get a lot of benefit from these very responsive, very playable pads. They stay much more in control and allow you to move more freely around the piano. Another kind of pad sound that I really love came from an old Workstation keyboard, and we've recreated it here with our own samples in Sunday Keys. It's called Background Flutes pad. It's a very, very specific sound from a very specific workstation that's not in production anymore, and it showed up on a lot of classic gospel records. I really, really love this sound and associate it with my childhood. Now, we can't talk about gospel music without talking about organ, specifically Hammond B3 style organ, a huge influence across lots and lots of gospel songs in the past and present day. And it's a bit of a tricky thing because most often you'd have a dedicated organist in the band who was just playing the organ. Because playing organ can often be a full-time job. You need to be able to manipulate the drawbars. You need to be able to manipulate the rotor speed. You've got your foot on the expression pedal. And you're covering tons and tons of ground. If you've never seen a skilled organist play gospel music from an authentic Hammond B3 organ, you've got to stop watching this video and go find somebody doing that on YouTube, because it is absolutely insanely incredible and so inspiring the way that skilled players are able to coax incredible sounds out of a Hammond B3. So when we're talking about layering organ in with pianos, pads, other layers, and we're talking about gospel music, that's not necessarily the approach that would make the most sense for a lot of bands, because you'd often have somebody else playing the organ, which allowed them to just play the organ. So if you're layering the organ in with pianos and pads, by necessity, you're going to have to compromise somewhere. You're either going to be playing the piano like it's an organ, or you're going to be playing the organ like it's a piano. Neither of those is ideal, but if you're the only keys player in your band, you're going to have to pick your compromise. So if you're just looking for a bit of that vibe, but you know that you're okay with compromising on a bit of the technique, then you could pull in a B3 organ sound and sort of essentially treat it as a pad, but just know that that's not really going to do justice to the way that a B3 could influence your sound. So it's also a good idea sometimes to let the other sounds go away, or let the electric guitar players cover them or whatever else, and just play the organ. So let me bring in this organ sound, and I'm just going to layer it in the mix underneath everything else, just to add a little bit of that grit and texture, though I can't replicate the playing techniques because the pianos and pads just don't allow me to do that fully. Next up, I want to talk about one kind of lead sound that's kind of specific to this song I've been riffing on here, Every Praise by Hezekiah Walker. It's this big sort of brassy synth horn lead sound. And I've got this pulled up in Sunday Keys. It's sampled from an awesome old analog synthesizer called the Super JX10. And I'm going to adjust the layer range so that it's only available in my right hand, because I still want to be able to play piano freely here. So I can walk. And then I've got that horn in my right hand. So when I get to the big chorus, super awesome, really fun to play. So these are a few of my favorite sounds that I associate with gospel music, but it doesn't nearly do justice to what gospel music can offer you in terms of inspiration and new ideas. It just takes the time to intentionally make an effort to expose yourself to the genre if you haven't already done so. So go listen to some gospel music, explore what's out there. You're gonna love it, you're gonna have a lot of fun, and I guarantee you're gonna be inspired. If you have the Sunday Keys app, there's a shared setlist link in the description of this video. Click that link to import the setlist from this video into your Sunday Keys user library so you can try out this patch for yourself. If you have some favorite gospel sounds that we didn't cover in today's video that you'd like me to check out, I'd love to discover some more awesome sounds. Maybe we'll even be able to recreate some of them inside of Sunday Keys. So leave a comment and let me know what I should listen to next.